Hi, I'm Nat, and today I want to talk about the ongoing and growing backlash against Pride Month, Pride season here in Canada because it's taken over summer, and the public's general realization that the LGBTQ plus community is not the same thing as the LGBT community as 10 years ago, and that they've infiltrated almost every aspect of society, and we are now expected to shove all the Pride stuff down our throats. Especially when it concerns children, people are starting to have concerns about where this is all going to lead. But the backlash that I think a lot of people were not even expecting is coming from Gen Z and students themselves. Me having worked at a high school and remembering what being a teenager is like, I kind of saw it coming, and some people did too. But a lot of Gen Z and middle schoolers and even sometimes younger students and kids are saying, stop it, because they're woke teachers that were wokeified and turned into activists by the universities where they studied their little education degrees.
The model's really simple. It's not hard to understand. If you capture educational theory, then you can capture the colleges of education. If you get the colleges of education, then you can capture the teachers. If you capture the teachers as a kind of a generational model, then you get the students, and thus you get the future. And this has been rolling from the 70s, trying to figure out how to do it. And by the mid-80s, that's what Marxification of education is actually about. They got linked up with this fellow, Paulo Freire, a Brazilian Marxist educator. He had the model. They figured out how to implement it. According to a Marxist educator named Isaac Gottesman, who was at Iowa State, he wrote a book called The Critical Turn in Education, telling this history. He says by 1992, in colleges of education, Paulo Freire's work was where it remains today, which is everywhere. And so they had that for 30 years. They've had 31 years now. They've had the colleges of education under their domain. And so they've just slowly started to change the educational system from within. The content, the curriculum, the pedagogy itself. And then it seems like it came out of nowhere because it required some legal changes that happened.
So now we're seeing students standing up against this, even protesting against Pride and Pride stuff. And that is because it has been shoved down their throats every day, 24/7, in every single aspect of their curriculum. And they see that it only affects a small, although growing because of rapid onset gender dysphoria in female students, but a small percentage of the students. Most of the students are still straight, and they feel like this focus on just this one thing and one aspect is getting tiring. And what do, if you don't remember what being a teenager is, or if you have a teenager, maybe you can see it in them, but teenagers are meant to rebel. And this is because when you're a teenager, that is the evolutionary phase of when you start testing boundaries to learn what you can and can't do. And you do this by going against the machine or the grain or what the adults are telling you to do. So if all the adults who are now millennials, who they themselves were rebelling by being allies or in the LGBTQ community or calling themselves queer, if now these millennial adults, teachers, are telling you that you have to do this, you have to look at Pride, you have to do the Pride stuff, you have to celebrate Pride for the whole month and talk about nothing other than other people's sexualities and gender identities, well, they're going to rebel against that. So we might start seeing, and we're seeing this in Germany too, for example, we might start seeing a push now towards nationalism. A lot of young people are starting to change pride flags for the flags of their country or their nation. This is happening in Germany. It's happening in the States. And now we're seeing it with students that want a way to show that they're completely fed up with these teachers and these school boards and the administrators shoving pride and gender identity and sexual orientation down their throats since they were very small. So we can see here, Canada. And the teachers are completely going mad about it because they're millennials and they thought they were allies and they were doing good and they were the best people because they were being so loving and accepting because they were indoctrinated into thinking that way. Well, now we're seeing teachers kind of at a cognitive dissonance when they see their students saying, no, we're fed up with this, we don't want anything to do with this, or like here in Canada, Muslim students saying this goes against our religion and why do we have to be present? And let's just see from the Publica, which is the Quartering's new enterprise and endeavor. If you don't know who the Quartering is, here's a video of him. So public school teacher tells Muslim students you don't belong here after some skip Pride Week. You don't belong here. That is not what Canada believes. So now this teacher knows what Canada believes. So a public school in Edmonton, Alberta is under fire after a teacher was caught berating Muslim students in her class for reportedly skipping Pride activities. A disturbing audio recording is being circulated on social media in which a female teacher, and they're mostly always females because they can get females to be activists when they're in university easier because females are a lot more empathetic and they want to help everyone. And if you tell them that this or that group need help, they're going to go help them, especially white, straight women because they're the second worst in the totem pole of victimhood. So the first worst people on earth for a few years have been straight white men, and the second worst are straight white females, which is why we see a lot of young women calling themselves queer even though they are straight, because they need that special identity class and identification that will get them out of just being a straight white female. But so the teacher at Londonderry School can be heard yelling at her Muslim students and telling them that they don't belong in Canada. And again, it's that cognitive dissonance where two things that they advocate and espouse are now in conflict with each other, and they're gonna come out looking terrible because they've been indoctrinated and are completely in the blinding lights of this whole ideology and of the progressive ideology, that it just becomes completely maddening, I guess, for them. And her outrage was apparently caused by the fact that some of them did not attend the school's LGBTQ-themed activities to mark Pride Month. So let's listen to a little bit at least.
To lunch, if you think it's acceptable to not show up because you think there's some pride activities going on at school, right? Oh, that's fine. You know, because I'm going to show my opinion by hanging out at the mall. But meanwhile, all of those kids who are, you know, involved in, say, the Gay Street Alliance or whatever, I don't even know if we have that anymore in our school, they're here when we did Ramadan for Lion Time, and they're showing respect in the class for your religion, right, for your beliefs. It goes two ways. If you want to be respected for who you are, if you don't want to suffer prejudice for your religion, your color of skin, your whatever, then you better give it back to people who are different from you.
So we are only going to respect your religion, and here is where the cracks start to show in this whole ideology, and especially in this teacher. So if you don't respect our religion and our ideology, we will not respect yours. And I think they probably never asked them to respect Ramadan. It was just something that, again, progressive woke activists want to virtue signal and say, look, we respect everyone. And so these students probably don't give it anything if the other students or school don't respect and celebrate their religion. But now they're forced to celebrate something that goes against that same religion that the teacher and the school were celebrating a bit earlier.
That's how it works. It's an exchange.
It's an exchange.
And it isn't like that in all countries. As I told you, in Uganda, literally, if they think you're gay, they will execute you. If you believe that kind of thing, then you don't belong here. Because that is not what Canada believes. We believe in freedom. We believe that people can marry whomever they want. That is in the law. And if you don't think that should be the law, you can't be Canadian. You don't belong here, and I mean it.
So now this progressive, open arms teacher that wants to respect everybody and says freedom of religion, let's remind her, but saying that they don't belong in Canada. the cognitive dissonance is so strong with these people that they cannot hold those both things at the same time. So now she's berating Muslim students, telling them they don't belong in Canada.
I really mean it. And it's not a joke, Mansour. I said back and forth. You want it, you got to give it. It just makes me angry. Sorry, I'm a little worked.
And because these women, usually these teachers, have been told for so long that to be a good person, you have to be an ally, you have to be virtue signaling about how much you care about others and the LGBTQ community and the Muslim community and minorities, then when those two ideas conflict with each other, their brains explode and they say stupid things like this. And they berate young students about their own beliefs. It's just completely insane that we're at this point now where, well, and now we also see from Robbie Starbuck that parents of kids at Edison High School in Huntington Beach, California, say this video was played to their kids in math class. The kids clearly didn't want to watch this Pride video, so the teacher threatened them with Saturday school to get them to watch it. You will be supportive and inclusive and an ally to the LGBTQ plus community because we tell you to. That is not indoctrination or a cult at all. It doesn't sound like one at all, even like a religion.
Why are you showing this to kids? Hey, I'll warn you guys now, if you're going to be inappropriate, I will have supervision down and give all of you a Saturday school for next year. So knock it off. Okay.
And we see it's to women kissing and the pride flag, but we also hear the students saying, booing, number one, doing gagging noises, and saying, the kid saying, why are you showing this to kids? This was during a math class. I mean, show them algebra and how to balance a goddamn checkbook and how to do their taxes, something that most people don't know how to do. But again, the cognitive dissonance with these teachers and these activists and these allies and gender ideologues and extremists is so big, especially within schools, that they cannot see that as millennials, because they've been telling kids, showing kids this and telling them and forcing them into the whole pride thing and the whole gender stuff and the whole sexuality thing. Since they were little, they're going to rebel against it. And this, I think, is going to be the worst backlash for the LGBTQIA2SL plus new community and new activists. This is the backlash that I don't think they were expecting, because they thought that they could groom and shape these children into perfect little allies and perfect little sexually diverse and confused children, and children confused with their identities that they could then push and use as cudgels to also justify their own positions. But of course, students are going to be rebellious, and if the mainstream thing, the thing that you're shown on TV, in movies, in school, by the government, by your parents sometimes, by every corporation ever, if that is the mainstream, they're going to rebel against it. Same as how the millennials rebelled against some homophobia and for same-sex marriage. It's the same thing. The millennials have now become passé. They've become old-fashioned. The pride and the LGBTQ stuff is now icky. It's gross, like that kid says, because they've had it shoved down their throats since they were little. And now they're going to rebel against it, and we might see not just a backlash of parents and some conservatives, but a big backlash and a big return, maybe, to traditional conservative values, which is what these children probably now yearn for, because they've been shoved around with ideologies and woke stuff their whole lives by now, probably, or at least for a big chunk of their lives. So these kids and these students, if we're not careful, might go down a route that actually turns back some of the actual real progress that was made, like not beating people up for being or loving someone of the same sex when there were still sexes. But we shouldn't regress to that point, and I think Gen Z is a little bit smarter than people give them credit for, but they are in their full right to rebel against this, and they have a lot of support on the other side. So activists, gender ideologues, and especially groomers, watch out, because now it's not just the parents, but the kids that you're trying to indoctrinate themselves that are standing up against you and your disgusting ridiculousness, and you're forcing them to be allies. And again, we see Massachusetts, this is from the Daily Mail, Massachusetts middle school students tear down rainbow decorations and chant their pronouns are USA during Pride celebration. Officials slam intolerance and homophobia. Students at Simonds Middle School in Burlington, Massachusetts were asked to wear rainbow-colored shirts to school to celebrate Pride on June 2nd. However, a student-led protest broke out where they destroyed Pride decorations, threw stickers on the ground, and chanted, "My pronouns are USA." Maybe tell them not to tear stuff down, but, I mean, overall, good for them. Free speech and expressing their own beliefs. Officials are now calling for the school district to reinstate the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board because of the display of intolerance and homophobia. Again, they're just going to make it worse if they keep trying to shove this stuff down people's throats. It's like they don't understand because there's cognitive dissonance there. They can't understand how, if they've been indoctrinating these children for so long, how the powers have now been broken because they're sick and tired of what they've had to put up with. These students are. So middle schoolers in Massachusetts tore down Pride decorations and chanted that their pronouns were USA in a striking protest after they were asked to wear rainbow colors to school. At Simonds Middle School in Burlington, Massachusetts, they were asked to wear rainbow-colored shirts for Pride, but they came out decked in red, white, and blue. They destroyed decorations, and they chanted that USA, they said, "USA are my pronouns." So again, it's that nationalism creeping in as the new rebellious stance for a lot of these young kids. So I was shocked and horrified. Again, cognitive dissonance. A parent of an LGBT student said at a town hall meeting. And the women are going to be shocked that their indoctrination didn't work on these kids. But kids will always rebel, doesn't matter what against. Whatever you try to put in front of them, they'll go the complete opposite way. So, kind of brought it on themselves. So let's watch a little bit of the
These
video.
displays of intolerance and homophobia are unacceptable.
This type of intolerant rhetoric starts in the home.
Parents and
It doesn't start in the home. It starts in the school because the kids are tired of all your bullshit. The students are tired. They're not taking it anymore. They're rebelling. And it starts at them being teenagers and them being, rebellious.
angry at town hall over intolerance at Simonds Middle School. Kids were asked to wear rainbow.
And I've said this a lot, but students and kids are smarter than we give them credit for. So stop saying that it's the parents, because maybe it's not the parents. Maybe they're also rebelling against their woke parents that want them to be an ally and have been taking them to pride parades to witness half-naked or naked men doing sexual acts on each other. Maybe they're also rebelling against their own parents.
In honor of Pride Spirit Day, but some organized a counter-protest wearing red, white, and blue or black. The principal sharing a statement to families that Pride posters were ripped down, stickers ripped up. Some students chanted "USA are my pronouns," and students showing Pride were intimidated.
It was an unruly disruption, in fact, that was organized ahead of time.
While some parents were upset, others say it was overblown.
Some of the kids threw the stickers on the ground, but I can only speak for my daughter. She didn't want to wear that to school. It's not that she wanted to hurt anybody's feelings.
She says her daughter felt coerced to participate in the Pride event and was offended by some of the messages, like this quote from Tennessee Williams.
Human heart cannot be straight. It is curves and winds. And my daughter just kind of said, you know, Mom, that's offensive to me, who I am straight.
But even parents like her, opposed to the Pride Month celebration, say the ripping of posters was wrong.
I think destructing any property is wrong. I think, I just think that was wrong.
Parents and community groups now calling for the town and school board to act and support diversity, equity, and inclusion. The incident sparking discussion at home on both sides.
My thing that I teach my kids is just be kind, and I wish the schools would just kind of pump the brakes on what they're shoving down these kids' throats.
The issue of pride in schools is very controversial. I understand that. I think we need to start at a place of commonality.
Place of commonality would be you're an American, you deserve all the rights that have been imbued to you by citizenship or by being born in the USA, and you can start there. You can start with the American flag, and in Canada we can start with the Canadian flag. We don't need to focus so much on identity groups, and these students are way smarter than the adults around them if they're starting to realize that they've been indoctrinated. They are in a cult or in a cult-like institution that is trying to make them into things that they are not. Like that mother's kid who said, like, I'm straight and I don't feel comfortable with that quote being put up in school because it feels like they're not respecting my identity as being straight. And a lot of them will say it just to be silly or just to be contrarian. But having to surrender, I guess, your whole day and your whole school time to a tiny minority who, I'm sorry, but in a lot of these cases, they are the weird kids. So having your teacher want to fully protect and only talk about things that interest that tiny percentage of the weird kids is going to annoy the rest of the students who are just regular, normal, want to live their lives, probably straight, and just don't care about this anymore because they know it, move on. I bet a lot of these students, especially the ones in math, I never wanted to do math, but I bet these students, they'd like nothing more than to do algebra and calculus rather than having to watch one more rainbow-colored thing put in front of them that they cannot escape from, and then they get berated for being annoyed at it or for being fed up with it. And I want to end with this from the White House saying that, well, I'll just let them say it. So this is from the White House officially. So to the LGBTQI plus community. It's like nobody can get the acronym right. Like decide what acronym it is and stick with that one because I'm tired of saying it all and then seeing different ones. The Biden-Harris administration has your back.
These are our kids. These are our neighbors. Not somebody else's kids. They're all our kids.
They're not your kids. They're not my kids. They're not nobody else's kids other than their parents. The ones that will be there with them and for them for the rest of their lives. That's whose kids they are. They're not the government's kids. And as Marxist as Joe Biden wants to go, and as communistic and socialistic and cultish as they want to make it, they're not your kids. They're their parents' kids. They're not your kids, Joe.
And our children are the kite strings that hold our national ambitions aloft. It matters a great deal how we treat everyone in this country. LGBTQ Americans, especially children, you're loved, you're heard, and this administration has your back.
And then Elon Musk says, you are the government, they are not your kids. Exactly. Same with Canada. And a lot of these kids, even the LGBTQIA+, whatever they identify as, are starting to see that when their teachers or strangers on the internet or TV shows or anyone says, we love you, you are loved, we are your glitter family, they're starting to realize that that is not true. Because the moment they step out of line, they get yelled at just like the ones that they were told that hated them. So it's the cracks are showing through the whole facade of the LGBTQIA+ pride stuff and month and season, whatever they want to make it, it's showing through. And people are starting to realize, parents are starting to realize, children are starting to realize. And if they don't correct course soon enough, kind of like what gays against groomers are doing, they're not going to end up in a pretty place. And then they might actually be victims because they keep wanting to take it to the farthest, to the last extent and the point to where there's no return from the actions and the things you're doing, like medicalizing gender dysphoric children and forever changing their bodies and mutilating them and leaving them infertile with no options after they maybe decide that wasn't for them and they were too young to decide. That's where it leads. So correct course now or face the consequences of lawsuits or jail because people are waking up and these things are coming down the pipeline. If this is a reaction that we're getting, especially from younger people, where do you think it's going to lead? But for now, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.